what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Hack the Box lab walkthrough video. Today we're going to be tackling the box Archetype in the starting point tier 2 machine list. One thing to note is that these boxes in the tier 2 machine list are a pretty steep jump up from the tier 1 list. All these machines that are going to be in the tier 2 list are definitely more involved. They take some more steps to get where you're going, and it definitely requires some outside resources. So if you're not familiar with that or you don't know some of the common tools that are used by the community, I would highly recommend to check out my Notion link. It'll be linked in the description below. It'll have a walkthrough for this box that's written up, and it'll also have links to all of the external resources used. You can also see that I've already done this machine. I did record this initially and then realized that there was a sound issue while I was recording, and I didn't realize that until the very end. So what we'll do is we'll go back through this machine again today. I'll show you guys what these answers are as we walk through, and we will get started on this. So first things first, this is going to ask about ports on the database, so that means we need to scan the machine. So one thing that we're going to start out with is our Nmap Scan. We're going to do dash lowercase s capital V for version enumeration, then we're going to do lowercase s capital C for scripts on that machine, and then we're going to do lowercase v for a verbose output, lowercase o capital A, and then I made an Nmap directory, so we will save that to the Nmap directory, and then we'll call this Archetype. Let's go ahead and grab the machine IP address really quick, and then we will paste it in here. And I will be back again with you guys in 1 second once this is done running. Okay, so that was done running. So what we can do now is we can cat this out from our Nmap directory. Let's just go ahead and get the right file. Let's make this a little bit smaller so that we can see everything here. So it looks like there is 4 open ports. We have an RPC port, NetBIOS, which is, it's going to be pointing that this is a Microsoft box. There is also port 445, so there's Samba on this machine. That's important to note. And then port 1433 is Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, so those are all important things to know. We're just going to scan through really quick and see if anything is to note from the script results. Doesn't really look like it. The only thing that I see here is that the machine name is Archetype. That's the host name. So what we saw is that there's Samba open on this and that there is a Microsoft SQL Server open. Those are kind of the two that I would pay attention to for right now. But let's go ahead and check if there's anything on the Samba shares open. So what we'll do is we'll do dash capital N and then dash capital L to list all the shares. And then we'll do 4 backticks, paste in our IP address followed by a double backtick. So dash capital N is going to give a no password prompt, and then dash capital L is going to list the shares. So we'll enter that on the Samba client. And then what we can see here is it looks like there's 4 shares that are open. One of them is not admin protected, and you can denote that with the $sign missing here. And it looks like that is the backups share. So let's take note of that backups share. And then what we can do is we can come back up here. Let's do Samba client again. And then we will just do dash N for no password, 4 backticks, paste our IP address, double backtick, and then specify that we want to connect to that backup share. So let's go ahead and hit enter, and looks like we are able to get in. Okay, so now that we're on the Samba share, let's see if there's anything to note on here. Let's list out. And it looks like there is a configuration file, prod.dtsconfig. So let's go ahead and grab that. Sometimes these configuration files have some pretty important information in them. So it doesn't look like there's anything else on this Samba share, so we'll just exit out. And then let's cat out that config file, see what we get. So we have DTS config, data. Okay, so it looks like we have a password and a username. Cool. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this down. So what we can do is we can echo that into the user.txt file. So that way we have some record of what these values are in case we need them in a pinch. Let's clear this. And now we want to check out the other service that was running on this, and that was Microsoft SQL Server. The Samba share is kind of done and over with. We don't really have any way to authenticate to it right now. I went ahead and tried the username and password that we got to connect to the admin shares, and it doesn't look like it's going to work. So the only other avenue that we have now is to look into this SQL Server. And there is there's something that comes default with Kali Linux if you're running some of the newer versions, and that's a tool set called Impacket. Impacket is basically vital for testing some Windows machines. So one of the tools that comes with Impacket is called MS SQL Client. And what we want to do to find that is we can just do locate MS SQL Client, and then we'll see where it's installed. Okay, so once we have the Microsoft SQL Client located, what we can do is we can go ahead and start connecting up to the Microsoft SQL service with this Python script. So what it's going to take first is it's going to take the host name, which we saw was Archetype from our Nmap script, and then we want the SQL service, or we want the username, which is going to be SQL service. So we got that from the configuration file that was leaked, and then we're going to grab the IP address and come back, paste that in, and then all we're going to need to do is do the Windows auth flag, and then we should be able to hit enter. We're going to be prompted for the password, which we have from that configuration file as well. So let's go ahead and push that in, and then it looks like we're connected up to the SQL service. Cool. So we're in this prompt, and if you're like me, I don't know all of the Microsoft SQL commands right off the top of my head. So what you can typically do in most shells is you can type help, and it'll give you a list of commands that you are able to run. So it looks like we have a couple different commands here. One that these are definitely of interest to me. They're saying enable XP command shell, and then we have XP command shell itself, which looks like it executes something via the command prompt on the machine, which is essentially arbitrary code execution. So this is extremely interesting and something that we should start pursuing here. So we will go ahead and just do the enable XP command shell, just in case it's not. So we'll type that in. And then it looks like it says it changed it from a 0 to a 1, so 0 being false, 1 being true typically. So it is now set to true, so we should be able to run command shells. It says we do need to run this reconfigure statement to install it, so let's go ahead and do just that. We will type reconfigure and semicolon, and it looks like we're good to go. Okay, so now we should be able to do XP underscore command shell. And then I believe we could just do something like who am I to test this out. All right, and it does look like we have some arbitrary code execution on this machine now. So this would be considered our first foothold on the machine. And now that we have the ability to execute code on the machine, we want to start to think about how we can use that code that we can execute on this machine to move towards a stable shell or a reverse shell that we can kick back on our machine that we can get some more privileges on. Okay, so to get that stable reverse shell connected back to our machine, what we want to do is we want to use a tool called Netcat. And Netcat is typically used as something that can communicate over any specified port You can use it as both a listening device, so like, kind of like a server, so to say, or you can use it as a connecting device. And what we want to do is we want to use Netcat on our machine to listen, and then we want to use Netcat on this machine as well to connect back to our machine with a command prompt. And that's in essence, what a reverse shell is. So to do that, this machine probably does not have Netcat on it. So to do that, we need to transfer up a Netcat executable. And it has to be an executable because this is a Windows machine. If you don't have that binary on your system, which you should if you have Kali Linux, you can just do locate nc .exe and it should show up. If you don't, however, I will have the download link where you can grab it from GitHub in my Notion repository once again. So to do this, we need to open up another terminal here, and we can do that simply with the Terminator shortcut Control Shift O. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have it in this folder, or in the current directory that we're in, which we do. And then we're going to start a HTTP server on our machine. So you can do that with sudo python 3-m http server.80. And then what you'll do once you type your password in, this is going to start a service on port 80. Now we can go back over to the SQL prompt. And so now coming back over onto the SQL machine, what we're going to do here is we're going to use this xp_command shell command that we have within the SQL Server to execute arbitrary PowerShell on the actual machine itself. And that is going to be used to retrieve this Netcat executable from our machine that's serving it on port 80 right now. So what we can do is we can do command shell, and then we're going to start the PowerShell that we want to execute. So we'll do PowerShell -c, and then we're going to cd into the C drive, and there we're going to go to users, SQL service, and then downloads. So we're going to cd into the downloads folder of the SQL service user, and then we're going to use wget, which is essentially, you can think about it as a tool that'll download things over HTTP from the command line. So we'll use wget, and then we'll do HTTP. We want our own IP address, which means we need to grab another terminal here and do ifconfig really quick, see what our IP address is, and it looks like it is this. So we will close this one out, and then we'll paste that IP address in there. And then we want to type the name of the Netcat executable. So for me, that's just nc.exe. And then we're going to do -out file. So this is what the file is going to be named on the system once it's downloaded. And then I'm just going to name it the same thing. So I'm just going to name it netcat.exe, and then close those quotation marks, and then hit enter. And as you see here, what we have, this is just going to give you a null output, but we can confirm that this has been transferred to there because we had a GET request from the target machine to our machine, and it gave it a 200. So it has been transferred up to the target machine. Now, what we want to do is use that Netcat. We're going to use that Netcat tool to connect back to our machine with the command prompt. So that'll give us a stable reverse shell. So to do that, what we want to do here is we want to make sure that we have a Netcat listener set up. And to do that, we want to go to our local machine. So you can see this is my machine that we're attacking from. And we're going to do -L for listen mode, V for verbose output, N for no DNS name resolution, and then P for the port. You can kind of put them all there together. You could do them each separately. I just think it saves some time. We'll do quad 4, just because that's the port I like to use. And then we're going to hit enter, and then you'll see it's listening on any port 444. So now that we have the listener set up, you can think about that as ready to catch our reverse shell. Now we just need to throw the reverse shell from the remote machine back to us. So let's go back over to the remote machine, and then we're going to do a very similar thing to what we just did. We're going to use that XP command shell, and then we're going to start our PowerShell. We're going to do cd to the C drive once again, and that's going to be users, SQL service. And then we're going to go back to the downloads folder because that's where the Netcat listener is sitting at right now. And then we're going to do // so that's kind of a shorthand way to execute an executable from the command line. So // netcat, which will execute that for us. And then we're going to use -e, which is a flag for Netcat that executes a program as it is activated. So we will do netcat.exe-e, and then we want it to send us back a command prompt. So what this is saying, this is execute command prompt as it sends it back to us. So what we're doing is we're grabbing this command prompt back on our machine. That's the shell that we're catching. Then we want to have the IP for it to connect back to. So we want to grab our own IP address, which we used in this GET request. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it. And then we're going to connect over port quad 4. You want to make sure that the port that you're listening on, the port that you send this on are the same. So once I hit enter here, you should see a shell pop back up down here on this machine, on our local machine. Just realized I had a typo there, but now once we execute this should catch the shell back on our machine. So let's go ahead and send this through, and that is exactly what we see here. So now we have a shell as the SQL service user on our own machine. So this is a reverse shell, and this is a stable reverse shell back on our own machine. So now that we have a reverse shell on this machine, we can go ahead and try to find the user flag. So let's go back a directory and see if we can find anything. dir is going to be the way you list out contents of directories on Windows. CD is still used to change directories. Typically for HackTheBox, they put these in the desktop, so we'll go to the desktop and then use dir. It looks like it's right there, so what we'll do is we will use the command type. Type is what you use instead of cat on Windows. So we use type, and then we'll do user.text. And that is our initial foothold. So we have gained the user flag for this machine. All right, and I'm jumping back with you guys here. I moved my face so you can see what's going on here because we're going to need another terminal. So what we're going to try to do now, we want to gain administrator privileges on this machine, or like root the machine, because right now we don't have enough privileges to gain the root flag. So to do that, we're going to need to start another Python server on our local machine. And then what we want to do is we want to drop in on our shell right now, we want to turn this into a PowerShell. So you can just type PowerShell and it'll drop you into a PowerShell prompt instead. You'll know that by it being denoted PS. And what we want to do here, there's a very popular script that is used to gain pass a privilege escalation, or get an idea of how you want to privilege escalate. That is called WinPs. The download for WinPs will be once again in the Notion repository that is linked in the description. And what it does is it scans the machine for potential paths to privilege escalate through. Because there's a lot of ways and it would take a really long time to enumerate, so it kind of takes some of that elbow grease out. So what we'll do is we'll start up a Python server. I have WinPs loaded up in this directory. And then what we want to do is we want to use that same wget method that we used to transfer over our Netcat file last time. So we'll grab it from the local machine. So we'll grab our local IP address, paste it in here on the attacking machine, and then we're going to do winps. Actually, I'm going to stop this really quick just because I want to see what I have that named as. Okay, so I have it as winps x64. And then we can go ahead and we'll do this server again. Okay, so then it's winps x64.exe. And then we should just be able to do dash out file and call it winps.exe. Okay, so we should be able to grab this. And what we see is that worked good because now we have a 200 response there. So let's go ahead and close our HTTP server. And then what we can do here, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for you guys. And I'll move myself up. We will clear some of this out. Let's use dir to make sure that it is there. And it looks like we do have winps. So now all we have to do is we have to do dot backslash and then winps.exe. So this is going to take quite some time to run because it does a very detailed check on the operating system itself. So I will jump back with you guys here once this is done running, and I will show you the path that we find to privilege escalate through. Okay, and we're back. So there is the one cool thing that winps does is that it color codes findings based on its confidence that you should check something out. So if you find something that's orange with a background and then it actually has like red lettering in front of it, that's like, it'll say there's like a super easy like public exploit available, and it's like over 95% sure that that's going to be the way you want to privilege escalate. Most times you probably won't find that because those types of things are patched pretty quickly. However, things that are red are things that you should check out. And if you look at all of the output here, there is quite a few mentions. If you keep going up, there's quite a few mentions of this specific file right here, and it's all in red. So this specific file stands out to me because it's a random text file. Looks like it could potentially be a log. So what I want to do here is I want to grab this path of this file, and let's go ahead and use the type command to type out this file because I want to see what's in this file. And would you look at that? It looks like we have a new username and password, and this is going to be for the administrator user, which is the root user on the machine. So it's definitely worth it to check out everything that's highlighted in red on here. I'm going to save you guys some time because there is a couple things that are highlighted in red. This one is what they point to the most because it's mentioned quite a few times. So go ahead, check this file out. This is what you'll find. You'll get a username and a password for the administrator user. I'm going to echo this into a new file really quick. I'm going to paste that in. Oh, okay, maybe not. We'll just nano paste it in. So we'll just do nano admin.text. And then we'll paste that in. Control O to write, Control X to exit, just so we have that noted. And then what we want to do from here is check out another tool that comes in the InPacket collection, and that is called PSExec. And you can think of PSExec as a way to kind of exploit some writable shares on Samba. So if you remember, there are Samba shares open on this machine, and there was one called admin. So it was the very first one that listed, it was like admin $. What PSExec will do is find that writable share and get us a way to authenticate to the machine. So we can just do locate PSExec, and it looks like we have quite a few here. But what we're looking for is this path to the one in user bin, because that is going to be where the binary's at. So let's get rid of this. We will paste this because this is going to be our binary. And then all we have to do, all this takes is basically like SSH. So we know that the new username, or what I'm going to do first, actually, let's cat out this admin. So we have, whoops, and then we'll cat this out. Okay, and then we want to do administrator at the target IP address. So let's go ahead, come back here, grab our target, make sure that's copied, and then paste it in. And then what this will do is this will automatically exploit the writable share as long as you have a password, which we do. We'll paste that in. And then boom, we can do who am I? And we are NT authority system, which is the administrator user or the root user on the machine. So if we go kind of follow what the pattern of HackTheBox machines, and we go back a couple directories and then cd to users and then cd to administrator, it has a capital A on Windows. So be careful of that. And then cd to desktop. Oops, desktop. And then we use dir. We can see that this is the root flag right here. And what we'll do is we will type out the root flag, whoops, to get our root flag. And that is completely privilege escalated through. So to go back, we'll answer some of these questions really quick just so you guys can get both aspects of this and you can move on. So which port was the database server listening on? So if we come back over and we can exit out of this, it'll clean that up for us. And then if we cat out the Nmap scan once again, I believe it was on 1433. But let's just be sure. Yeah, okay, so the database was listening on port 1433, so that is the answer for this one. The name of the non-administrator share over SMB. So that was the backup share. That was the one that did not have the $sign next to it, if you remember right. So that was backups. Task 3 is what was the password identified in the file on the SMB share. So that was the config file that we grabbed from the backup share via Samba. And that was this megacorp123 password. Coming down to task 4, it says what script from in-packet collection can be used in order to establish an authenticated connection to the SQL Server. So think about if you can remember what this is called. I'll give you a second. The answer is Microsoft SQL Client. That's the one that we use to connect up to the SQL Server. And then it said the next one is what extended stored process of SQL Server can be used in order to spawn a Windows command shell. So this was the command that we were using to execute arbitrary code on the Windows server, and that was the xp_command shell. Then task 6 says what script can be used in order to search possible paths to escalate privileges on Windows hosts. This is one of the ones that we transferred up to the machine and then ran. If you remember, this is called WinPs. And then this is task 7. It says what file contains the administrator's password. If you remember right, this was something like console host history.txt. It was something along the lines of that. Yeah, console host history.txt. So that was the one that WinPs identified, and it was in red a couple times on the output. And then we just have the user and root flags, which you guys will have to submit for yourselves. But then once you do, the machine should be pwned, and we can move on to Oopsie from there. All right. It was fun walking through this machine. We got to do some cool stuff with the SQL Server, kind of see what a real box on HackTheBox might look like. We're going to be doing the Oopsie machine next, and we will continue down the line with vaccine after that. All right, thank you guys.